Hi, I'm Harshada Rajadhyaksha from Prakriti Sports Science and Physiotherapy Clinic, and because tomorrow is World Diabetes Day, I thought today I would talk to you about sugar. And what I decided to do this time is formulate a few questions which I think most people do want to know answers for. I'll ask the questions to myself and then I will answer them. Will you get diabetes if you eat too much sugar? Well, not necessarily. All sugars are carbohydrates, and when carbohydrates are digested, they are released in the bloodstream as glucose a little time after you have eaten. And this is good because glucose is required by our body for all our functions, for our muscle cells to work, all cellular function actually, including brain function. But you also know that the glucose in the blood needs to be maintained to a level of less than about 140 mg per dl, and this is even after you eat food. So once the glucose level rises above this level, insulin from the pancreas is released, and it's supposed to do one out of two things. One is it either opens the doors, so to say, of the muscle cells or any other cells of the body that need that glucose to do work, or it sends this glucose to the liver, where it is then converted to fat and sent all over the body to be stored as fat. Now when this happens, the glucose level in the blood comes down naturally. But when the body cannot effectively deal with this blood glucose or bring it down to a reasonable level within a reasonable amount of time after you have eaten, that is when we say you have diabetes. Now this can happen because of two reasons again. One is because the pancreas just do not produce enough insulin, or otherwise maybe they are producing enough insulin, but the cells have become resistant to this insulin and they do not kind of let this blood glucose in, and that means that the blood glucose level cannot come back to normal because the glucose has nowhere to go. So eating too much sugar will not necessarily or immediately give you diabetes, but it will definitely increase your risk of getting diabetes and also make it easier for your cells to become resistant to insulin. How much sugar is too much sugar? This is a difficult one to answer, and I would say it is different for different people. If you are overweight or if you have a family history of diabetes, I would say it is best if you stay away from sugar. But there are so many people who eat a lot of sugar and can get by their whole life without getting diabetes. So I would also like to say it is not just how much sugar you eat, but many other things together which might contribute to the fact whether you will get diabetes or not. Besides sugar, what are the other foods that you eat throughout the day? Whether you stay active throughout the day or not, if you have family history of diabetes, if you are overweight, if you are somebody who suffers from a lot of mental and physical stresses, if you are a smoker, if you smoke regularly, whether or not you exercise regularly, so many other things, all of these together in totality will decide whether you can or not get diabetes. Having said that, if you can avoid adding plain sugars to the foods that you eat, then you should. Because many of the natural foods that we eat through the day already are high in sugars of different kinds. For example, the fruits and vegetables that you eat, especially the starchy vegetables, the cereals, the staple cereals that you choose through the day like rice and wheat, and also some other foods that you might not necessarily put into this sugary category. For example, milk and meats have sugar, especially processed meats. So when you want to avoid the total sugars that you are having throughout the day, you would rather choose these natural foods which are high in sugars but also have a lot of other nutrients that you need, and avoid the plain added sugars which have no nutrition but a lot of calories and also will have the possibility of you later on developing diabetes. Should you avoid fruits completely if you have diabetes? Certainly not. Just follow these simple rules. First of all, do not eat a fruit with a meal that is already high in carbohydrates, or do not eat a fruit right after a meal that was high in carbohydrates. For example, do not eat amras with puri, and do not eat a green ripe banana just after a meal that had chapati, rice and some vegetables, etc. Secondly, do not eat more than the portion size of that particular fruit at one time. So find out the portion sizes of each fruit and eat according to that. Do not eat, for example, a very large mango at one time. And thirdly, associate the fruit eating with some kind of exercise either before or after. It could be even as light as a 15 or 20-minute walk, so that the glucose that is released into your bloodstream is well utilized. What about fruit juices? It is best to avoid fruit juices. First of all, when you have a fruit juice, you are having much more portion size of that fruit than you are allowed at one time. For example, if you are having a glass of orange juice or apple juice, that will contain 3 to 4 fruits versus the one fruit that you would have eaten if you ate it. Secondly, it does not have the fiber that is good for you. And thirdly, too much glucose is released into your bloodstream very quickly at one time. A smoothie might be a better option, especially if you add some protein content to it, like a protein powder or some yogurt maybe. Smoothies are made by blending fruits and vegetables, so they have a better fiber content. They also help to keep you full for longer. They are better for your gut. And it also makes sure that the blood glucose rises very slowly. So smoothies are better. In fact, you might also add some nuts to it to make it healthier. And if you want to go further, you could also replace a meal with a smoothie. For example, your breakfast or your lunch, which might even make it a good option for weight loss. Why do I get a craving for sugar or something sweet right after I have eaten a meal? This is a really interesting one and right now extremely personal to me. So I would like to give this answer to myself. I used to joke earlier that I'm not a sweet person, and by that I meant that I do not get cravings for sweet or sugary foods. But all that has changed in this lockdown period, and now every time I eat a meal, I feel hungry for a sweet or a dessert right after that. And I've been doing it. I've been eating a sweet right after my meal. I have tried to balance it out with some exercise, etc. But it is an addiction and I want to stop. So here goes. So going back to our prehistoric past of being hunter-gatherers, sugar and carbohydrates are very valuable or precious to our bodies. And our body is always preparing for survival and assuming that it might not get the next meal. Every time you see sugar or carbohydrate, your brain actually wants you to eat it, use it as energy, and also save it as fat for later use. And because of this, the brain releases dopamine every time you eat sweet. Dopamine is a feel-good hormone, so it's a positive feedback. So your body is telling you that if you see sugar, if you see something sweet, then eat it because I want you to protect yourself. So sugar is addictive. When you eat sugar, you will crave more sugar because that is your body's positive feedback for you. Coming back to me, I'm a generally happy person, but obviously through this lockdown period, I've probably been less happy, maybe a little emotionally low. And so this time when my husband got us some sweets and I ate them after lunch, I quickly got addicted to this behavior. I started craving a sweet or a dessert every time I ate lunch or dinner, and that is because I think subconsciously it made me feel good and I got addicted to it. So let me say this again, addiction, sugar addiction is just like any other addiction. It is very easy to get addicted to, and you will have to work on it just like you would work on any other addiction. I know this is really minuscule information for a really big ass topic, but I just wrote down a few questions that I thought most people would want answers to, and I have answered as best as I could. If you have any more questions, do write in and I would be happy to make more videos on this same topic. Also, like I always say, please, I request you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up if you've liked it. Share it with your friends and family. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Stay safe. Bye for now. See you soon.